Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for those of you joining me and those of you watching it afterwards. Thanks for watching. So it's amazing how much everybody is talking about this Equifax breach. It's really, I think, probably going to impact everybody at some point. So I'm just going to give you some 101 about the whole thing today, what happened, what people are saying you should do. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the Twitter sphere snarkiness that's going on about it that makes people kind of question what they should do. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our kids, our elderly parents, and what we should do to help them. So for those of you that haven't been on top of the news this week, let me just start with what happened. Equifax, one of the three major credit reporting agencies, announced that they had a breach. It happened about 3 months ago, and they're saying that 143 million people's data was stolen. Now, by my math, that's 60% of us. The reporting is saying 44%, but I was talking to somebody last night who is definitely in the upper loop of knowing, and he says that the word is going to be that everybody was breached. So I think that remains to be seen. Safe to say, the majority of us need to really pay attention to what happened. It is the most important security breach that has ever occurred in the history of us having credit and numbers out there. So, and in terms of what got stolen, they're saying social security numbers, of course, addresses, birth dates. Some of our driver's license numbers were stolen. There is a smaller group of people who already had their data locked, about 400,000 people, that's data was also stolen. Those people are going to be getting piece of mail, like snail mail from the company saying, hey, and this is specifically what you had stolen. So you'll get a notice if you happen to be one of those unlucky 400,000. So what does it mean? What should you do? I'm going to walk through your options, everything from protection to monitoring to, of course, the option to just do nothing and deal with it, which I don't recommend. But there's a lot of choices out there, and in all the reading that I've been doing this week, the utmost protection, if you want to be as sure as you possibly can, is to lock your credit reports up. And you do that by contacting all three of the credit reporting agencies. And a little later today, I'm going to post on my site information about how to access all this stuff. But if you want to do the utmost in protecting, lock your credit report at all three sites. That's kind of a pain in the butt. It's going to take a little bit of time, and it will cost a little bit of money, like at the most, I think $10 per entity to put a lock on it. And what happens is then nobody can open new credit under your social security number without having the PIN. So you'll get a PIN. You can't lose it. It's not like most of our PINs where if we lose it, we can just go in and set up a new one. You absolutely have to have that. And then if you want to open and access new credit, you can just use that PIN to open new credit again. So one of the questions that I got this morning was, what should you do if you're somebody who just doesn't use credit that much? And that's what I do. If you don't need to access your credit that much, just go ahead and get that done. It's going to offer you the most protection. The second thing you can do is put a fraud alert on your file. And when you put a fraud alert on your file, also that's kind of a pain in the butt to do. It's going to take a little bit of your time. But at least what happens then is that nobody's supposed to be able to open new credit without you being notified. So that's more of a right up front monitoring perspective. But that will help if you, for some reason, don't want to lock your files. So the next level down is by monitoring. And so Equifax has offered free monitoring for everybody at this point, whether they think that you were dinged or not. And you get that by going to equifaxsecurity2017.com. If you put your information in there, they will tell you whether they think that you were whether they think you were hit or not. And then you can go from there to sign up for their free monitoring service. I personally am going to do that. I think no harm, no foul. Like, why not? I know some of you have some things to say about it, and then when I talk about the Twitter sphere snarkiness, I'll address that later. But that's definitely something that I'm going to be doing. So that will give you 1 year of monitoring. But keep in mind, it's not protection. It's just monitoring. It just gives you immediate notification when something happens. So the next kind of level down is you can do your own monitoring. Like, any of us can do this at all times. So at annualcreditreport.com, we can all get one free report from each of the 3 agencies every 12 months. So if you set yourself a calendar every 4 months to check Equifax, and then check Experian, and then check TransUnion in 4-month rotations, then you're doing pretty good in terms of your own personal monitoring. You know, the catch of that is, how good are each of us at doing that, once every 4-month thing? If you're good at that, then do it. You don't need to trust Equifax. That's going to help you see what's happened. Again, though, it's only monitoring, which does not provide protection. So I've got a question. Is that the only new lines, or you can't use any of your open credit cards? Oh, no, you can. It's just for the opening. So when you put a freeze on, it is just for the opening of new credit. It locks the ability for you or anybody else to open up new credit. It's not about currently existing credit cards. You'll be fine there. So then the last thing, of course, is do nothing. And, I just think that we are at a point in time where do nothing is just not, that's not a good answer anymore. The truth is, all of us at some point in time have probably had some identity theft occur. And sometimes it's an easy one. When I came home from Europe this summer, I had within the month, somebody was trying to withdraw money from my debit card in Jakarta. Even though I took every step possible while using my credit card in Europe, debit card, and somebody, I used the whole RFID thing, and it was still, I can't swear that it happened in Europe, but I'm assuming that it did just because of the timing. So it just happens, and I think it's important for us to monitor from this point. Which brings me to my next point, is monitoring versus protection. So most of these things are just monitoring. And I also, in reading through all of this now, have made a shift in my belief about whether we should do the purchasing of something that offers protection around what if identity theft happens. So things like ID Shield and LifeLock. It's for about $100 a year, you're going to get protection if something happens. So they are going to do the majority of the work of fixing whatever happened with your credit to get it back in place. And I'm hesitant in offering the advice for a couple of reasons. One, LifeLock has LifeLock got in a lot of trouble when they first started selling their services for deceptive practices, because the truth is that it's going to take time. If we get our identity stolen, we can hire somebody to do the work, give them a power of attorney, and have them fix stuff, but in the end, it's going to take time from all of us of just being on the phone, being on hold, calling credit card companies, figuring out what happened. So I am hesitant in that advice. However, I think that if you're in the category of an extra $100 a year isn't going to really hit your spending plan in any kind of negative way, I think it's a wise $100. I'm not really a fan of what I like to call roulette protections. Like, life insurance is important, especially if you have kids. Accidental death and dismemberment, not important. That's roulette insurance. Like, if you happen to die this one way. And so I have previously thought of identity theft protection as kind of one of those roulette protections. And in fact, ID Shield, which in all of my research would tend to be the way that I would go. And I'm thinking about buying it myself. I haven't made the final decision. They are a part of a company called Legal Shield, which is, roulette protection for attorneys, attorney services. Like, that's one of the reasons that I'm hesitant to recommend that particular thing, because I know once you become an ID Shield member, they're going to be also trying to sell you Legal Shield, which is not something as a financial person that I would recommend. So looking at my little list of things I wanted to touch. So some other recommendations, some financial professionals are saying change your passwords. Out there in the dark net where all this stuff is sold and traded, they're going to be putting things together. They have your social security number and somebody else has your social security number and some passwords to your sites. Criminals put that stuff together and use that, and it becomes even more sellable. So some people are saying change all your passwords. If you want to take this to the nth degree, follow that advice. Another thing to remember, file your taxes early. So definitely one of the ways that our Social Security's numbers are sold and how they're used is people file bogus tax returns, change our address, claim a refund, and boom, they get a refund check from the IRS. The IRS is so far behind in trying to deal with that issue. And if you read some of the stories of what happens, it just becomes a nightmare. So don't wait to file your taxes. Make sure you're the first one to put a return in under your own name. And then the other thing is, don't forget your elderly parents and your kids. So I have a 22-year-old. She asked me what I was doing today, and I told her I was doing this video. And I'm like, you've heard about the Equifax thing, right? And she said, well, I've seen it on your stuff, but no, I haven't really paid any attention. Like, 20-something-year-olds have the beginnings of credit. I have this huge stack actually on this bookshelf right here. It is that big of credit offerings that Dakota has gotten since she's been 18 years old. It's crazy the amount of offers she gets. And we just put them up there. I'm going to use them for some art piece or something someday. So watch that, because that is absolutely your 20-something-year-olds or even teens that have Social Security numbers out there and the ability to start accessing credit. They're absolutely at risk, and they're probably not clicking and reading about the Equifax deal. So please do that for them. Same thing with your elderly parents. Like, definitely, my mom's 83. She's never going to be using credit again. But what a pain in the butt it would be for me if something happened with her card. And she, of course, has a great credit score. So I'm going to be locking down her accounts because we don't need them. So let's just get them locked. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm going to talk about some of the snarky Twitter sphere stuff that's been happening. So there's people saying, oh, don't sign up with Equifax's thing because they are also, in the fine print of that, you're giving up the indemnity to then sue them in the future for any potential class action lawsuit. And that is true. They put that in the fine print. And then they got completely slammed by it. And about 24 hours later, they said, oh, okay, well, that's true. All you need to do is write us a letter within 30 days saying, I do not give up indemnity, or, I haven't really drilled down into what the letter needs to say, but it's out there on the internet. You just have to Google it. If you're really dying to be a part of a class action lawsuit that I'm quite sure is coming. But in everything I've read about it, we're not going to get hardly anything. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be sued, because I think this happened because they didn't spend as much money on security as they should have. And so I definitely do think they should be sued, but are you and I going to see any appreciable amount of money out of it? No. I think the best thing we can do right now is to just protect ourselves. Other Twittersphere stuff out there, people are really ticked off because there's been information about executives in the company dumping some of their stock. And so when you drill down into that story, what that is on every quarterly report for every public company, they have to report management people that sold their stock. And it is true, 3 people on the last quarterly report in the company sold their stock. One sold 5%, one sold, I think, 8%. The biggest one sold 13%. So these are normal actions that happen. They're reported every quarter. It's not like somebody dumped half their stock. This is not an unusual thing. You can go to every quarterly report for most every company, and some executive will have sold some of their company's stock, because that's what you do. So in the reasons to be ticked off at Equifax, I really don't think that's one of them. And then the last one people are saying is, well, then Equifax is going to have our information and they're just going to try to sell to us when the 1 year free is done. That's absolutely true. I have no doubt. And Equifax would never get a penny of my money. And so that's really quite irritating. Hopefully our lawmakers are going to jump in and do something. I don't have a lot of trust given our the current state of our lawmaking in America right now, but hopefully they're going to jump in and do something, because I really believe, like, Equifax didn't pay the money up front to protect our data, and Equifax should pay the money to provide us protection and monitoring well beyond 1 year. But we'll see if our lawmakers stand up and do anything. So thank you, everybody that showed up to listen. Is there any more questions before I close out for the day? All right. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day. And those of you that are a part of the Team Do Better group, I look forward to hearing from you when I ask on Friday what it is you did to protect your data. Thanks for being here.